It's time for the Daily Stand Up Podcast presented by AgileDad with your host, Lee Henson. Without any further ado, let's get started. I recently had a student challenge me and asked about, is lean bigger than agile? And I thought to myself, wow, I said, that's actually a really good question, because if you understand the history of lean, you could lean in, no pun intended, and say, yeah, lean is bigger than agile, right? So if you think about it, um, let's go there. So as an agile enthusiast, this question is chicken or egg, right? I could see so many benefits in agile for the white collar world, but I also see some implementations where it just really fails. And that made me think about what caused it to fail or where it was meant to be used. And it took me back. So lean was designed to be used in manufacturing. It goes back to Japan in 1936 when Toyota got its first truck contract from the government. They had to do something to optimize the processes. And at that time, Kaizen was born and later transformed into TPS, the Toyota Product System, or the Toyota Way. And then again in 1988, the ideas and tools that Toyota used were rebranded to Lean by John Krafchick. I had no idea. He wrote the article titled Triumph of the Lean Product System. All this time I thought it was Deming. But this article stated that lean manufacturing plants have higher levels of productivity and quality than non-lean, and that the level of plant technology seems to have little effect on operating performance. According to the article, risks with implementing lean can be reduced by developing a well-trained, flexible workforce, product designs that are easy to build with a high quality, and a supportive high-performance supplier network. So if you think about lean that way, it can be implemented with a significant risk reduction in situations where it's developed. So the challenge goes back, well, wait a minute, what about Agile? Agile oftentimes doesn't even talk about risk, right? It wasn't originally designed for a broad range of situations. Even if we just rewind to 2001 and the Agile Manifesto, the manifesto, don't get me wrong, it's a great starting point. It's got everything there. But at that time, they were focused on software, and they were focused on working software over comprehensive documentation. If I took it a step further and said working products and services over comprehensive documentation, I could move it a little, more down the pipeline. But I think that we need to understand how people work, and we need to understand what makes things work. So if we're trying to choose, okay, that's great, Lee, but how do I choose what's better? How do I choose the proper framework? How do I choose which direction to go? So neither one of these are just an easy, simple transformation, press a button and magic happens, right? Lean consists of multiple practices, Agile consists of a truckload. But when you're trying to improve something, I think you just need to start with what's the problem and why did you choose either of these to solve that problem? Because if you look at it from that perspective, you might say, oh, well, yeah, that makes sense. And this is why I chose it. But on the other hand, you might look at it and say, well, wait a minute. I chose this to solve this problem, but does this particular skill set, or I shouldn't say skill set, but does this particular ecosystem help solve all these organizational needs? And I think that if you're looking to do a complete organizational transformation, you'll find that looking at Agile holistically may even be more simple than just looking at Lean. But both offer a great set of tools to help you move forward. So for me, when I think of Lean, the question I ask myself is, am I manufacturing a product or service? If the answer is yes, lean in on Lean. If you ask yourself, am I dealing with a services team that's doing tickets for other groups within the organization, whether it's marketing services, architecture services, any group that you don't have enough people to spread across, every team, nor would it make sense to do so, then the answer once again is yes, you need to lean in and do lean. But if you're doing things that are a mix of software and hardware related, and it's not a whole bunch of trouble tickets and everything can't be broken down into really small pieces, and it's impossible to do 1 week sprints or no sprints at all, you may want to consider the bigger Agile picture, because I think it's going to give you more options for implementation. And in the end, it's going to lead you to an ease of implementation. And I think that's what the goal is, right? So while Agile tends to cause uncertainty within organizations, at least when it's initially implemented, because people just don't understand it, Sometimes people feel like it's not okay to just implement parts, that you have to have the whole framework in order for everything to flow. And while something like Scrum is very simple and sits in a center, like a hub of the Agile framework, yeah, you might need to do all the Scrum things, but you don't need to do all the Agile things. And I think it's just a matter of understanding that larger picture. Because if left untamed, Agile goes on to be the most complicated thing in the world, because you have to think about implementing the Agile mindset, the way of thinking, and then choose your framework carefully and build out from where you start. And if you're in a large company, that might require different things for different groups, or different parts of the organization. Different arms of the organization could be doing different things. Every framework has roles, responsibilities, and tasks to worry about. But if you're thinking about it from the bigger picture, you need to look at each of the roles or titles and say, I'm not going to try to map these one to one, but do I have the people available to do what I need to do? So, for example, in Lean, you have a sponsor, a facilitator, a leader, and a team. But if you flip to Scrum, you have a product owner, a Scrum master, and a developer. And that's it, right? And more than one developer, obviously. But when you think about this, and you go on and say, okay, let's do scaling. Maybe you want to implement less or safe or one of those. What's going to happen is you're going to start to realize that you're going to need people at the program level, at the solution level, at the portfolio level. And it's just going to cause more confusion. And if you're not doing the fundamental things right, it's going to cause more chaos, right? Because if you're not doing things right at the team level or at the workday level, it's going to be real hard to get that organized at a portfolio level. So I think that if you start with something simple like Scrum or Lean and you build around it, it's going to help you to understand who is responsible for these accountabilities and what is their title. And what you're going to find, especially in large companies, is that the people who are responsible for the accountabilities of the business analysts certainly aren't always called business analysts. And the same is true with functional analysts, technical analysts, marketing analysts. I mean, I can go down a list with you. And all of these people, for example, are there to support the product owner. And sometimes, oh no, they might not be called a product owner. They might be a product manager, product liaison, a product overtaker. I don't know. It's just, the point I'm trying to make is, don't get hung up on titles, right? Look at the people who are doing the work and look at their accountabilities and figure out how those accountabilities map back to the title. And then that leads to the key to sealing it all together, and that's education. It's easy for people to overlook education. And I know what you're thinking, shameless plug for AgileDad. It really isn't. Whether you go and do self-learning, whether you hire a big organization to come in, a consultancy, or whether you bring us in to help you with this, a big piece of this is understanding that education is critical for you to succeed. I'm going to say that again. Education is critical for you to succeed. There's a real cool video on the AgileDad site that talks about how to choose the right training company, how to choose the right trainer, how to choose the right training for your group. And I strongly encourage you, if you haven't looked at that, it's free. Go look up that video. I think it'll help you make sense, because there's so many things out there. It makes it hard for you to choose exactly what you're going to do. And don't just run with, oh, this one group's doing this, so we're going to do it. Or, oh, this one part of the company is using this tool, so we should all use it. I think it's important for you to understand that each team and each division or group within the organization could be operating differently. And it's important for us to take that into account and figure and say, okay, what do we need to do in order to help support that group, and in order to help make sure that we're getting the best we can out of those teams, and make it not scary and make it easy for them to consume. I think the big reminder here is that Agile is a mindset. It requires all kinds of different things, moving parts, to make it work. And if you can coordinate those moving parts, you can have success with Agile. That's going to do it for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have a topic you want us to discuss, learn more at agiledad.com. We'd love to hear from you. As always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.